Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the March 18th curriculum meeting. I want to apologize right off the bat to anyone who has been waiting for the last 20 minutes to participate and view this curriculum meeting. We have had some laptop troubles, some internet troubles, and I do apologize, but we are here now and we are ready to begin with the curriculum meeting. And I will begin by calling the meeting officially to order and welcoming our new committee member, Reverend John Kirkpatrick, to join Mrs. May and Mr. Sides and myself to the committee. So welcome, Reverend Kirkpatrick, to the team. And let's start with an official call to order and approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. And I hope everyone has had a chance to view the February 18th minutes. Okay,
So
then
moved.
I will accept a motion to approve. Okay, Sarah May, I need a second. Okay, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to items for discussion. This is information only, and we will begin with the literacy pilot update, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Breedlove.
Thanks, Ms. Merrill, and I appreciate everyone's flexibility this morning as we made a change from an in-person to obviously a virtual meeting so that we can continue to move forward as an academics department with our curriculum and instructional items. As you know, that we have two items for discussion, one item for action this morning. Our first informational item is an update on the Phonics pilot program. Orton Gillingham and Jolly Phonics. We started these pilots 2 years ago. I've asked Dr. McKinnon and Dr. Topper, our two elementary school performance directors, to join us this morning as they are working directly with our four principals in the four schools that we have offering these pilots. Our board, in our board docs, you will see handouts for today's meeting. I also sent those to you all via email just in case there was electronic difficulties this morning, which we seem to be having, right? One of the handouts is a literacy update. It's information on Orton Gillingham and Jolly Phonics. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McKinnon and Dr. Topper for their updates.
Thank you, Dr. Breedlove. Good morning, board members. Good morning, Dr. Houlihan and Dr. Breedlove. We thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to share this update. We are very grateful. First, we just want to talk about kind of where we are in both of these schools. As Dr. Breedlove mentioned, a one-pager has been provided. So we will refer to that a few times and provide additional information as necessary. So we'll start with Orton Gillingham. And Orton Gillingham, the pilot on this particular method started in 2019. And despite the school closure and reopening shifts, our pilot schools have continued with phenomenal implementation. Orton Gillingham is a multi-sensory approach, which means that the teachers engage the students in use of sight, as well as hearing and touching and movement to teach phonics, phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, writing, spelling, and vocabulary. These particular skills that I just mentioned do carry over into other literacy structures, such as guided reading, writing, small group instruction, as well as other content areas, especially when students encounter words that they don't know. There is consistency between classroom teachers on each grade level, and there is also consistency between teachers and support staff whenever students are engaged in small group support. In addition to these pilot schools, You'll notice on your one-pager, there are some additional elementary schools that are implementing Orton Gillingham in the district, but our 2 pilot schools are Marshville Elementary and Union Elementary for Orton Gillingham. So next, I'll turn it over to Dr. Topper. She'll give you an update on Jolly Phonics.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Like Orton Gillingham, Jolly Phonics does meet the criteria for effective literacy instruction. It is direct, explicit, multisensory, and systematic. With this approach, a specific sequence is used to teach students 42 sounds, the letter or letter combinations that make each sound, and a corresponding action, song, and story. For example, the T sound would be taught explicitly. Then students are taught that the letter T makes that sound. A picture of a tennis racket is on the sound chart. Students learn a motion for swinging the tennis racket, a song about tennis that they move to, and a story about tennis, all of which now they are associating with the T sound. Our schools that have used this approach with their K-2 students since 2019 include our 2 pilot schools, Sardis and Shiloh Valley Primary, as well as 3 other schools, Indian Trail, Western Union, and Poplar. Overall, the feedback from the teachers using this approach is very positive. Some things that they have highlighted include students love to get to sing and dance and move, and that they learn the sounds quickly this way. They remember the motions and the songs when they come to an unknown word and when they're writing. This approach has led to consistency across classes and a grade level, including students that are on Plan D. By following the same sequence, using the same online resources for the songs, stories, and movements, the classes are aligned. Teachers of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade students have noticed that students remembered and were using the songs and movements that they learned last year as they came into this year, and they were able to build upon that. They also greatly appreciated how easy it was to catch up students because they had access to these resources and were able to onboard students and catch them up.
And so now we're going to just talk about what our next steps are with the pilot. First of all, we do plan to continue with the pilot in these 4 schools. We are getting extremely positive feedback about the instructional impact, also the ease of delivering instruction, the way in which students are responding to the routines that Dr. Topper mentioned, as well as some of the other routines in Orton Gillingham, specifically those that are multisensory, like touch, tapping out sounds, or even the use of sand trays for students to be able to trace their letters and their sounds. We're learning so much from these pilots, as well as other schools that are implementing. Schools that want to practice, who want to implement practices associated with Orton Gillingham, schools that may want to explore Orton Gillingham, or even those schools that are in the early stages of exploring will benefit from us continuing with the pilot so that they can learn from the feedback that we're able to gather. So as we continue with this pilot presentation, Dr. Topper is going to now talk about one way that we'll continue to support both of these schools.
Professional development was provided for every kindergarten through 2nd grade teacher in both the Orton Gillingham and the Jolly Phonics pilot schools when the programs rolled out in 2019. And over this, the time of implementation, anytime a new student joins the team, in order to have consistency, they have been onboarded with that professional development. It's important that in order to continue to impact student learning and to have consistency, that we continue to support the training of teachers that join these pilot schools in this upcoming school year in the kindergarten through 2nd grade.
Another support system that we'd like to talk to you about is to continue the use of the Communities of Practice Network. And this networking structure is principal and teacher driven. The academic support team supports their efforts by being present and participating in their efforts. But the principals and teachers decide on a school to highlight, to bring teachers together to observe best practices and discuss their implementation highlights. It was very much an empowering opportunity for teachers to lead one another and for principals to collaborate. And we look forward to being able to continue that when it's safe to do so. Other networks between schools occurs by other means of communication, such as sharing best practices, showcasing a specific teacher. So in the future, we want to continue structures such as these that are teacher and principal led, and also just asking the questions about what would best support teachers and principals at this time with continuing with their implementation. An example of that would be model classrooms potentially. Also gathering lessons learned from the pilot schools and sharing that out to all elementary schools as well. So as school performance directors, we'll continue to ask principals and teachers about what's working well. We'll continue asking them, what are the needs of the teachers and the students? And then also what support do they need? And we'll continue to collaborate with them in order to make things happen that they feel are needed for implementation.
Anytime we take a pilot approach, the reason is to be able to say what was the impact. And so we are committed to monitoring outcomes with these 2 pilot schools. We have an abundance of qualitative data that supports that these 2 approaches are effective. Lots and lots of commentary from the teachers. They're excited about the alignment. They're excited that it carries over from year to year, and their ease in onboarding students that join the classes and getting them caught up. They also are seeing the effects in the students' writing, and they have been saving writing samples to be able to compare and highlight that impact. iStation data from the classes that are implementing Orton Gillingham and Jolly Phonics does support that there is student growth in these classes. We would like to be able to continue gathering that data into the next school year, because this, as you look at an apples to apples approach, I do not think we could say this year was apples to any other year that we have ever experienced. And therefore, on that line, we would like to go into an additional year of collecting data to be able to show continuity and consistency. That concludes our discussion of those items, and we are open to any questions that you might have.
So about 12 years ago, one of my children was diagnosed with dyslexia. So I am, and I was a parent partner with him in an Orton Gillingham program to help him with his phonics and reading and writing and lots of activities. So this is very near and dear to my heart.
Wonderful.
So I'm very familiar with Orton Gillingham, and I know it's tried and true and an amazing literacy phonics-based program. I am extremely intrigued by Jolly Phonics, and so kind of a 2-part question. Has there been any cross collaboration between Sardis and Shiloh with Marshville and Unionville to see the pros and cons of each? Has there been any cross collaboration between the Orton Gillingham pilots and the Jolly Phonics pilots? And then I was just curious, are you seeing any trends that one might be working better than the other?
I could answer that by more the collaboration was prior to selecting which approach to go with, and teachers actually went to two schools that had started to implement. There were implementers before we started the pilots.
Correct.
So they were able to visit and to kind of decide based on their schools and what they knew, being the experts of their classes.
Right.
The teachers bought into one or the other,
Okay.
and then we ended up selecting the pilot. So the collaboration has actually been Orton Gillingham with Orton Gillingham, Jolly Phonics with Jolly Phonics, but they were exposed to both. And one thing that I can definitely say is whatever the school is implementing, they're super happy with. We haven't done it as much comparatively, but people love what they're doing.
So when I guess, like you said, last spring and this entire school year is not normal by any means, but hoping that next school year will be normal. Do you ever envision an opportunity like when we have half days and our teachers are doing professional development? Do you ever see the teachers from Marshville and Unionville and Sardis and Shiloh Valley doing any type of presentations to the other schools to show, okay, well, this is how we taught the sound T for tennis, so that that the other teachers can see, okay, well, this is how the Jolly Phonics team did their presentation versus Orton Gillingham, so that other teachers can maybe take a little bit of professional development back into their classrooms. Has that been talked about?
I think that's a great idea. We can certainly explore that. Mrs. Merrill, thank you for that suggestion. We have not thought in those terms up to this point.
I love the idea of being able to share this, with other teachers, because I remember when my son was diagnosed in between 3rd and 4th grade, by the time he was in 5th grade, I went to talk to his 5th grade teacher about it, and she said, she had no skills, to help my son, because he had been in 3rd and 4th grade getting his Orton Gillingham training, and his 5th grade teacher had never been exposed to that. And again, this was 12 or 15 years ago. This was a long time ago. So that is certainly not our, teachers today. But I just think it would be wonderful, that, I know this training has been K through 2, but I think it would be awesome for, these two teams to be able to present, cross present, and show what they're learning and doing and what's working, in their classrooms. Because just from my personal opinion, I think a lot of students get misdiagnosed. And and end up going down the wrong path to get the skills and strategies that they need. The very last idea I had listening to the Jolly Phonics were the action songs and stories, and I don't know if this is possible with permission slips or parents given permission to do this or not. But would it be possible for our teachers to start recording, making videos of these songs and sounds, and maybe create a UCPS Phonics, video library, so that, parents, on a remote learning day, maybe kids can go online and learn these little songs that maybe their class hasn't been taught.
Right. I actually, in preparing for this, I actually Googled Jolly Phonics to see what would pull up and what was available. And there are different charts available. There's little sample videos. You get into copyright to have the whole thing available. But fortunately, because of our remote instruction this year, once they had bought the rights to it, the school was able to populate the videos, and that's how they kept consistency across the classes. So this was excellent for carryover once the schools had bought that. But as far as videos of classrooms using it, that has been happening.
Oh, great.
Because, yes, while we were in plan B and doing kind of a hybrid model there, and then went on to the plan D. So that has been an excellent byproduct of that, is that we now have some video clips of students actually using this.
I have two little nephews and a little niece in Eastern North Carolina that have been doing a lot of remote learning this past year. And I just think about my parents, their grandparents, being able to pull up little songs and videos that would help build their literacy. And when you brought up writing skills, I think about dysgraphia. And, if you don't know your phonics and your sounds, there is no way you can write. And if you can't read and write, then you can't take an EOG, math, or reading. So I love these two programs, but I would love to make it accessible, to all children, diagnosed or not diagnosed. And with that said, I'm just going to stop talking and let the other board members ask questions. But thank you both so much.
You're welcome.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I have a question. I'm new to all of this, and so it's exciting to hear about the different curriculums that are being presented. One of my questions is in reference to data. Is there a measurement of data for children of color? How has their performance been with this curriculum?
I could speak to that. The iStation data is something that we have gathered through this year, but we're struggling a little bit even with consistency of that data this year, whether the student was in school, out of school, what makes schools different from each other, right? So what we want to do is continue into next year, and then we could go class by class, student by student with the diagnostic measure. The writing samples are good because you can track that child, but the iStation data would be an area of focus, especially as we go into next year as well.
And I'll build on that real quick. So Pastor Kirkpatrick, the state of North Carolina, as part of our current Read to Achieve legislation, requires all school districts to monitor reading and writing proficiency for kindergarten through third grade. And when you hear the word iStation, that is the online platform that the state provides all districts with to measure all of that. So they take a beginning of year, mid-year, and end of year iStation assessment. It's a formative assessment. There's no consequences associated to it, but it's what our teachers and schools are able to use to monitor the progress you're asking about.
Second question is, how are parents? Are they aware of this curriculum, meaning as far as being able to help to support the teachers when it comes to what they are taught in the classroom? Is there some type of training or introduction to parents that's given at the beginning of the year so that they will be able to be aware of this curriculum and what have you, help make sure that we produce excellent test scores and what have you at the end of the year?
Sure, I can address that. So the parent involvement does definitely support the learning greatly, especially when students are in remote learning. So the teachers have provided parents with the different materials and supplies that they may need, so that, especially if in remote learning, students can still participate in the multisensory approaches and routines that we talked about earlier. So parents are provided with materials, and then teachers will also record videos to support parents with learning how to use those materials. They'll also record videos that guide students through lessons. So of course, parents who are supporting students through remote learning, they're able to access those videos as well. But teachers do a great job spending time with parents on the front end of the school year to make sure that they are informed and very aware of how to support their children through their literacy approaches.
I love that question, because I know just from my experience, it was like a contract that I would be carrying over those lessons, and I had material at home. So if we were, driving to the beach or driving to see grandma and grandpa and stuck in the car for, 4 or 5 hours, we would sing the songs or do the memory exercises and identify things, along the route. So parent involvement is so important. And so Reverend Kirkpatrick, I really appreciate that question. And I can see our teachers, in that parent teacher meeting when they get their first report card. That would be a great introduction to what they're going to be doing in the classroom and how they can carry it over at home. And again, I love the idea of having those videos so that, on bad weather days, they're at home and, and can do the songs for their siblings or whatever. But parent-teacher organizations, like on PTO nights, I could foresee that it would be a great idea if those classrooms, did a performance, at the PTO meetings. I think that would be great.
And I believe, Ms. Merrill, more of those things happened last year than this year, which is again why teachers have been, we've been so fortunate that teachers have recorded many of the support necessary for parents to be able to support their children at home.
I would also like to see if our music teachers in all of our elementary schools, if they could get, plugged in, because I know last spring we had a lot of amazing art and music teachers that were, sitting outside on their porch or back deck and doing music classes and putting it out for their students. So I think that would be a great resource as well.
That's another great idea. We'll explore that because as you were talking earlier, the lessons learned that I mentioned earlier that we'll be collaborating with the schools and collecting, we very much see that as an opportunity to extend beyond the classroom, okay? Whether it's extended beyond K-2 classes or extending beyond in other content areas. So we will definitely consider these suggestions. Thank you so much for that.
And you know how students are so proud when they get that student award? Help me, the Kiwanis, Sarah May, someone help me here. What
terrific kids.
Terrific kids.
Kid, thank you. Just imagine if you were terrific A kid or terrific B, terrific C, and they got to wear that letter and, and be recognized because, they had learned that letter. I think it would be so awesome to reward the children when they master those sounds and stuff, and give them the pathway to be proud that they were awarded because they learned that particular song or performed it well, and could just receive a recognition for that. I think that would be awesome. Do any other board members have follow-up questions? Mr. Sides? Okay. Sarah May?
I do.
Yeah.
On the other schools that are implementing the programs, are they just doing that like out of their own funding? And then how many grades, like, do we know information like how many teachers at those schools have been given the training, that type of thing?
Yes, ma'am. The schools that have taken on these approaches have made the commitment with their own school funds to do so, as well as to continue to onboard so that there's consistency. Anytime a new person joins a school, they commit to training them as well.
And in
Now,
terms
I
of
remember as a I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I remember back in 2018 or 19, I remember the board approving funding to go get our staff trained. So yes. I remember approving that funding because it was a big number. I wasn't aware that each individual school was having to pay for it.
That the schools that are not pilots that have decided to join made that commitment within their school funds, but the pilots were covered. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Dr. Breedlove or Dr. Houlihan, do you have any comments about how we fund this?
It was my understanding
make sure that the schools have the money to do it.
Yes, ma'am. I believe it's my understanding that back in the spring of 19, I guess, the curriculum committee voted to approve the funding for the 4 pilot schools. Okay. So those are district funds. The other schools that either were doing this before the pilot, because many of them on that list were doing Orton Gillingham or Jolly before we even went down the pilot. And that's really why we wanted to explore this, because we were having success from other schools as we were learning about these. And so they, the principals committed to using their curriculum and instruction school funds to do this. And I assume that would be, to go back to Ms. May's question, that would be all teachers in all grade levels, K-2, yes. In all of these schools is what we're talking about.
And then I also, does a school in the district do the letters? Because I've been seeing a teacher tweet, I think at Antioch, she keeps tweeting about letters, and I know Mr. Sides had sent us that article about that. And then isn't there something through the state where we're supposed to be using Sopris Learning? And I noticed letters was on there as something that
ma'am.
we're allowed to use.
That's correct. And, you know, there are several schools that have begun getting letters training. I know that Mr. Childers over at Antioch and the instructional coach that's over there have gone through that training. And so you're starting to see individual schools reach out and begin some of that training. That's on the heels of what the state is moving towards with the science of reading.
Right.
It appears that the state is really looking very closely at providing letters training to all K2 teachers, possibly K3 teachers across the state in the coming years. And that's going to be a multi-year training just to get everyone right. And you know, if we have a chance to jump in and be one of the first school systems to do that, since we're already moving down that road of science of reading, that would be something that we would be very interested if we get the opportunity to pilot that for the state as well, because of the significant cost of that training. I believe it's you know, you're looking about $600+ per teacher in training.
And I'd also like to add that we'd like to come back to this committee in the future with additional updates. You know, we've got to make sure we're running our literacy efforts in parallel locally with where the state is going, because we do not want to be misaligned. Part of that is looking at our literacy framework that we really refined almost 4 or 5 years ago. And we've asked elementary principals and teachers who have really been the experts in this field to help us analyze that framework. And when we're ready to look at those revisions, we'd like to come back to this committee to share with you what the feedback was, any changes we need to make, and how we're kind of running parallel with the state on all things literacy. So maybe a future item to consider.
I have one quick question. Are all students in these schools getting the same lessons, or do you have to have an IEP or 504 to get these lessons? Do you have to be technically identified as an EC student, or is the entire, you know, kindergarten, first, second grade getting these exact same phonics lessons?
Yes, they are getting these lessons as part of their core approach. So for word study. So all students are
participating. Because I think it would be a shame for an undiagnosed student not to receive this. And I think it benefits every child to have this.
Absolutely. Yes, they are all, this is the approach that the school has adopted.
Perfect.
So there's consistency across the board. I want to address something that we were saying with letters, because it can be a little bit confusing because we're talking about these two approaches. These are approaches that meet the criteria for effective literacy instruction. And it was just the choice to adopt those approaches. And with the idea not of saying this is better than this one, they're all approaches that meet those criteria, and just starting to develop those model classrooms. And like you discussed earlier, the opportunity to learn from each other about how we will meet those criteria of effective literacy instruction.
Perfect.
And another comment, you asked about additional students and additional, you know, if students with IEPs or 504s are getting something different. What principals are noticing is that when these core strategies are in place every day for all students, there is transfer to those other small groups. So not only with small groups support in the two areas that you mentioned, but also small groups for interventions with other support staff in the school. That's the benefit of being aligned with any method or any approach, that there aren't mixed messages when students go between different classes.
Perfect. That's great. If there aren't any other questions, I just want to thank you both very much. And, you know, just please keep us updated through the committee, through email, you know, and let us know if, you know, what kind of feedback or needs you're hearing from your elementary schools, because I love these two programs.
Thank you for your support. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Okay, have a great day.
Thank you too.
Let's see. Let's, on the agenda, let's now move for discussion and information, the CTE program overview.
In addition to the information shared on literacy pilots, I've also asked Mr. Davis, Brian Davis, who's our Career Technical Education Director, to join us and to provide the committee with an update to our CTE programming and pathway options that are available to all UCPS families. We do this annually. This is also part of an accountability process that Mr. Davis and the CTE department must give as an update to the Board of Education. So it kind of kills two birds with one stone. It gives the board an update, and it also checks a box for Mr. Davis with the state. In board docs, I know Reverend Kirkpatrick, if you need me to send that again, I saw your comment in the chat box to send over the literacy. Let us know if you did not get the information that was sent earlier, and I'll be glad to resend that to you. But you should have those documents. Mr. Davis, welcome to the Curriculum Committee, and it's good to have you here and joining us. So please feel free to go ahead and begin the presentation.
All right, thank you, Dr. Breedlove, and again, almost good afternoon to everybody. We're getting close, so good afternoon, and thank you for the Board of Education for allowing me the time to give some updates on what has been going on with career and technical education over the past year, and also kind of give some insights on where we're heading as we move forward. So I want to begin and just kind of go down the handout that you have here and kind of expand on some of the things that we have here. To begin with CTE accountability, we are now operating under the new Perkins 5 legislation. So with Perkins 5, there are some things that have changed with accountability and looking at technical attainment for our programs. In the past, we relied on CTE state assessments, which were state tests provided to students that were able to assess how they mastered the concepts and courses. And now with Perkins 5, we are moving toward performance-based measures, which we call PBMs for just using the acronym, which give us an opportunity to have students show that they have mastered concepts by applying it in performance-based tasks that DPI has provided rubrics and guidelines on. Those are currently in pilot for this year. We have 13 courses that are impacted at this time in that pilot, and we will also be expanding some of those courses next year, and we will also be in a pilot due to COVID-19. They chose not to take that a pilot status. So it gives them a chance to get some feedback on those courses and make sure those are appropriate assessments. And the third and final way that they are looking at technical attainment is credentials. So when we talk about credentials, we're talking about proof of learning credentials here. And these are credentials that are 80% or more of the course content. So, and I'm going to highlight credentials as we move forward now in just a few minutes, but I wanted to make sure everybody understood kind of how we're looking at being assessed and looking at accountability going forward with CTE under Perkins 5. So one exciting thing that I would like just to bring up is that CTE is growing in Union County Public Schools. A lot of that, I want to say, goes to the really good work that our career development coordinators do in our schools. They're working to help promote the programs. They're really working to make students aware of pathways that we have. The number that you see on there is comparing 2019 to 2020. So in 2019, we had 32,539 duplicated students. So what that means by duplicated, some students take more than one course a year. So that is the total number, counting those courses where they take more than one, or the students where they take more than one course. In 2020, this school year, we were looking at an increase of a little over 4,000 students to 36,730. So I feel like that's a good representation of how CTE continues to grow in our areas. Our continued areas of focus for Union County Public Schools and CTE, we have multiple pathways in several program areas, including agriculture education, business and marketing, career career development, computer science and information technology, family consumer science, health sciences, trade, technology, engineering, and industrial education. So students across the district have multiple opportunities at our schools to get into these pathways that are under these program areas and really explore some career pathways that can be very beneficial to them as they look for alignment with careers. We did make some decisions on adding some new courses this year. One that is really becoming very popular is our Adobe pathway. So we have 3 courses in that pathway that students can get in and take. It also can lead into our film program that we have in some of our schools. We have our business management pathway, financial planning, the new counseling mental health program. We are a part of a limited pilot from the state of North Carolina that has been at Monroe High School and at Forest Hills High School. Next year, that does move out of limited pilot status and goes into a full pilot, so any school can participate in that. So that should be something that should open up across the district as we move forward. Python Programming 1 and Python Programming 2, and that pathway is another new pathway. And Python, if you're not aware of Python, is the programming language that is now the most popular out there. So that transition is a good transition and really will provide some future opportunities for students. New academies that we have, and just to clarify, a CTE Academy is a pathway that allows students when they're juniors and seniors to be able to travel to another school. And sometimes we don't have those programs at schools due to a facility issue, or it could be maybe there's not enough interest at their current school to be able to have that, but another school does. So we provide that so that students still have access to those programs. So I think Dr. Breedlove has provided the academy map for you. So what you see there in that map is the opportunities that students have to travel to other schools. And the way that works is that students fill out an academy application, and we work with the schools to make sure there are seats available. And then we set them up so that they are allowed to be able to travel for half a day, typically, to go to those schools. So that has been popular. And one thing that we felt was really important, ag mechanics is the 3rd most popular agriculture course that we have. But unfortunately, only 4 of our high schools have shops. So you have to have a shop and the equipment to do those courses. So we opened that up so students that are interested could travel and take those courses. The Robotics Academy is another one that we felt like we would open up. So we've opened that in academy status because many of our schools have that, but there are a few that do not. They just didn't have enough interest at the school to build a full program. So we still allow them to have an opportunity to travel and take those courses if they see fit. Some things that I don't have listed on here, that these are brand new, hot off the presses. So we did get some new approvals here recently to participate in 2 new middle school pilots that I'm really excited about. The first one is coding in Minecraft. We're going to be using that course at Piedmont Middle as part of a limited pilot. If that goes well, that could be something that expands across the district in the future. As well, at Porter Ridge Middle, we have the Anyone Can Code courses, which is built around the Apple Swift Playgrounds application, where students can build iOS applications in that course. So these are some things that I think really are going to be beneficial, and it really will align the middle school into what we do with our Python programming in the high school. So excited about those opportunities for our students and for our teachers to participate. So part of our programming that we do is we try to make sure that we do a good job of promoting our programs, not only in our schools, but at the district level. And our communications department is great about helping us do that. So we always appreciate the help that they give us. But this year, we did some things a little different. In the past, we always did a high school programs expo where parents and students would come in, a great event. And I hate that we couldn't do that, but we all know the current environment would not allow that to happen. So we decided what we would do a CTE high school programs expo week. So what we did, and that was kind of a 2-part plan, and I have to give Alan Plyler a lot of credit here. He and some of our staff worked to build a CTE website for the high school programs expo that really highlighted all our programs, had videos in there that were pre-recorded so parents could go in and learn about our programs. The other piece of that was we had a week-long event where we had live sessions where parents could come in talk to teachers from the programs, learn about the courses, ask questions, and really get a good handle about what they might be doing when they get to high school, or if they're already in high school, what are other options that they may have as far as programming. Overall, we had over 450 students and parents register to participate in that event, and we felt like it was very successful. The other benefit of that is that now we've got a web base with all this information that's built out that we can use from now on to help promote our programs. So I feel like this will be something we will continually update, and when we're hopefully back in the face-to-face ability to do those things in the fall, we will be able to have this as an add-on piece for what we're doing. So we're excited about that and all the work that went into that. Moving on into credentials. Credentials, again, is a very important part of Perkins 5 legislation, and we really believe that these industry recognized credentials are just important for students. Not only does it give them the skills that help them get ready for a career, it also gives them a lot of confidence that they've learned the content. So looking at the numbers there, I do want to make sure that you kind of see how excited I am about that. So if you look at fall 2019, this was the last time we were pre-COVID. That was a full 5 days a week, teachers teaching as they had been in the past. We had 3,744 credentials earned. In the fall of 2020, in a blended environment and a Plan D environment, we had 4,347 credentials. That's a 16% increase, which is a testament to the job that our teachers have done, being able to get our students prepared for to get these credentials, and for being able to work through all the challenges they've had trying to get these hands-on activities and all those things into the classroom when they can. So very excited about that. I can't say enough to all the teachers that have done a great job with that. To give you some examples, Conover Workplace Readiness, we had over 1,900 credentials earned, and that is a credential related to soft skills and getting students ready to go to the workplace. Food Handler Certification, we had 271. We had 257 students get Adobe Photoshop certified. NCCR, if you're not familiar with NCCR, that is the National Center for Construction Education and Research. That is the credential associated with many of our construction trades courses. We had almost 200 credentials from that group. We also had the Excel certification. The Excel certification, we had 156 get the standard, and we had 71 students get the expert. So I'm really excited about that. And again, our staff that work with them and our teachers have just done a great, phenomenal job trying to get that rolling this year and keep it up. I expect as we go back, hopefully continue to be 5 days a week, we're going to continue to see those numbers rise, especially going into 21-22 school year. Moving into work-based learning, which is another very important piece for Perkins legislation and CTE. We have a very strong internship program. But as you can imagine, internships are based on being able to get students in a place to work and see what's going on in their shadowing. So with the challenges with COVID, our numbers dropped drastically, especially in the medical field, which you can imagine, it just makes sense. We dropped down to about 62 students that participated this year, which is substantially down from what we've had in the past. The good news is that we now have over 70 applications moving into 21-22. So I feel those numbers coming back, and industry is beginning to open up more and more for us to allow students in there. So I'm excited about that. And I expect that we're going to continue to move in the right direction there. Also on work-based learning, and this is something I'm really proud of, and I'm really proud of our programs that we've got. We have just recently registered as a registered sponsor for a UCPS Hvac registered pre-apprenticeship. This is really an exciting thing. We're the only ones in North Carolina that are doing this right now. In fact, DPI is using this as their template for other pre-apprenticeships across the state of North Carolina. So it's really we're kind of setting the trends here. But what this does, students commit to our CTE Hvac pathway, which I'm really excited about. So when they do that, they also commit to keeping their grades at a certain level. And this will align them up to be able to move into a full-blown apprenticeship, either with one of our industry partners, with South Piedmont Community College and Helms Heating and Air, or MCI. So it's really some good things that we have going on there. We just getting this going and we're just beginning to promote it. But I hope with our Parkwood High School HVAC program, this will be something that will really take off. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to our CTE website and go under work-based learning, and you can read about that and see a little bit more detail. But it's really exciting to see some of those things happening with that. We're also looking to continue finding ways that we can expand that. In fact, I've already been talking with South Piedmont Community College about the possibility of an electrical trades pre-apprenticeship, as well as an automotive service pre-apprenticeship. So these are things that really align well. And part of our goal with CTE is making sure that our students see a pathway from middle school all the way through high school, through college, or into the career place, directly in the career place. So we're really trying to work to do that. And we've been building our partnership with them. In fact, we've also been working with our career coaches from South Piedmont Community College, and we've invited them in, and they come to our CDC meetings now, our career development coordinators. So they come in and we're working with them so that we are going in the meeting with students and working with students in a team approach. So it's been a very good partnership that we feel like is going to continue to blossom as we move forward. Career exploration is something that I want to really kind of highlight because this is important to me, because this is what drives students getting in our pathways. And again, our career development coordinators, who are outstanding, have done a really good job of getting students excited about pathways. And I really, again, go back to our numbers. This is why our numbers are going up. Part of what we do is we always work with our industry, because we want to make sure that our industry is involved in giving us feedback, and we want them involved in our classrooms, whether it be virtually or whether it is something where whether it be virtually or whether it be face-to-face. And as we move into continue moving with some of the things that we have going on for career exploration, Major Clarity, which is a new program that we've implemented this year. I know, Ms. May, you and I have talked about this just a little bit. It is a great program. And with Major Clarity, we've been working to use this to begin with this year being an unusual year, to start this as a resource for teachers and students. And we're marketing it that way at this point. And we've provided training for teachers, training for staff. We've also created resource pages, websites for teachers. We've created lesson plans for teachers to help this get going. The other things that we've done is we had our very first parent night on Tuesday, which was great. And we had over 100, or right around 100 parents participate and learn about the program. And every day we check, we're getting more and more students activated into this program. And our CDCs are really instrumental in helping us push that. Also, as we move through there, I'm just going to show this. This is something else that I'm looking at for next year. I don't know if y'all can see that. These are Oculus VR goggles, and I would invite any board member that would like to come by my office in the next week or so to come in and try these on. I'm looking at this as being a potential opportunity for next year. This is a demo unit that I have now, and it is a complete simulation of multiple workplace environments. So we are looking at this, especially in our middle schools, to target them and get them excited about multiple pathways they may have never seen. And then hopefully when they come into the high school, they'll have a better idea of what they want to do. And the great thing about it is the kids go through it, it's data tracking for us. So we get that data back, and it's just another data point to use with Major Clarity to help us make decisions on programming. So really a neat thing. We're moving in. We still are continually working with Builders Bridge on construction immersion. I know I'm going long and I'm hurried. Construction immersion events.
Brian, please do not hurry. We
Okay.
want to hear this.
Oh, well, thank you.
Do not hurry.
So with the construction immersion events, again, with COVID, it's kind of slowed things down a little bit for that. We've had to put them on pause, but we hadn't had a meeting with them last week, and we will be looking to move forward with those next year. I do want to highlight one really successful event from this year that it's kind of a yearly event. And I know many of you are aware of Make It Union through the Chamber of Commerce. Pat Kell is a good friend to CTE. And during that week, we had a virtual highlight of many of our industry partners, and we had, and I have a whole list if you would like to know who participated, but many manufacturing companies participated, and we had near 1,000 students were exposed to some of our manufacturing careers through that event. It went a week long, and we had a very successful opportunity for students to be able to just see what's going on and hear from the people working in there. So that was very positive. Also, our career and technical student organizations, or CTSOs, like FFA, FBLA, DECA, HOSA, those type of organizations have still been active to expand on what students are learning. And just to kind of give you some ideas of how, and I got to brag on my teachers a little bit here. So to give you an idea, and our students for that matter, in DECA, Union County Public Schools, they just had their state competition. They had 6 first place, 4 second place, 10 third, 1 fourth, 1 sixth, and 18 state finalists. Marvin Ridge HOSA had 18 first place, 9 second, 9 third, 10 in the top 5. And even recently, Cuthbertson High School was 3rd place in the vet science career development event, and Piedmont was 3rd. So we have some very active programs, even in the COVID environment. I have to give a lot of props out to the state as well for being able to provide these virtual options for students. I'm glad they were able to keep those things for them going. So moving into the last bit, and I will open up for questions, is teacher recruitment and training. One of the things that I think is very important with our specific group of CT teachers, many come in from industry, is providing some specific training. So myself and some of my staff and Garrett Williams, we work to help provide some training specific to CTE for our teachers as they come into the CTE and learn to teach. Many of our teachers are BTs this year, so we wanted to make sure that was specific for them. One thing that's been really successful is we have weekly PLC meetings. Well, I'm going to call them collaboration sessions, not really meetings. They're teacher led. We began facilitating these, and we put teacher leaders in place, and they run themselves now, and we pop in and provide support when needed. But many of the times we might have one ag teacher at a school who doesn't see another ag teacher except on Fridays in their collaboration session. So with everything that's went on with COVID-19, this has been a great resource for them to share best practices and figure out how to do things differently in this environment. So it's really been a positive, and I expect those to continue even in the future. Also, things like Project Lead the Way, where we've added programs, or where we have new staff that have come in because we've had some turnover. CTE Summer Conference will be virtual. We're participating in that, and as well as NCCR training where needed. So that is a quick overview. And I did forget one thing, and I have to give a shout out to our EL department, because they helped us provide a complete Spanish translated version of our website for our Spanish speaking population. So Mr. Tejada and his team, they're great. So I just wanted to throw that out there before I forget. So with that being said, that's my quick update, and I'm open for questions.
Board members?
Oh, okay. I'm not going to ask any questions. You can go first.
Ladies first.
No, you go, because I ask questions about this all the time. So.
Okay. And so I was looking at an email that Ms. May just sent me as it pertains to the different programs at the schools. And this is like really exciting to see these programs offered. So this is somewhat like what Union County had years ago, the Career Center, correct? Okay. And so what is the response from District 1 students? Do they participate? I know that I see Monroe and Forest Hill, what programs that are offered there. Do they participate? Do they take advantage of these opportunities?
So as far as, I guess, I mean, just make sure I clarify the question. Are we talking about CT in general? Are we talking about academies? I know there's a lot of pieces there, but
the academy as a whole, I guess. Do they take advantage of these career opportunities, or are they just there and they say, oh well?
That we do have some. So currently for this year, we had 8 students from Forest Hills that applied for an academy application or an academy. Of course, it's up to the school and registration whether that was all completed or if they stayed through it this year. Because I know there were some changes with everything going on with COVID. And Monroe High School, this year we had 1 student that participated. So again, it just depends. And Monroe High School being kind of specific where it's got the Health Science Academy, we have a lot of students that are getting into that program, and that's a great program in partnership with Atrium as well. So a lot of great things happening there. But yes, they do take advantage of that. I spent a lot of time at Monroe High School, and we would have a lot of students that would travel, say, to CATA and do automotive, or go into the cosmetology program and do those type of things. Yes, sir.
So, Brian, I just want to clarify. You said you only had 1 application at Monroe High School when we have mechanics, carpentry, electrical, law and justice, masonry, robotics, engineering, and welding. Am I understanding only 1 person applied to do one of those, or did I misunderstand?
That's a good question. So thank you for bringing that up to let me clarify that. So those numbers that I just gave were numbers of students traveling from other schools
Out of district.
to those programs. So if they are at Monroe High School, they can just register as normal for those programs. So that you're not going to see those in those numbers. So those are students traveling from Monroe High School, say, into vet assisting or into cosmetology or some of those type of things. So very good question. Thank you. Sorry I did not clarify that.
Because I think what Reverend Kirkpatrick, and I don't want to speak for him, but if I understood, because I had the same question, I think, if there are 1,000 students enrolled at Monroe High School, how many of those are are 300 participating in those programs, or 100?
So I can give you some duplicated numbers. So
yeah, sure.
So if you want some duplicated numbers, again, you got kids that are taking multiple classes. So in CTE at Forest Hills High School, we have about 1,245 students that are in classes. Now, that means that there could be some duplicated numbers in there. If we look at Monroe High School, 1,622. So they are definitely taking advantage of our programming that we have there.
Okay, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. So it's just in my opinion, it sounds like the student population in Monroe is absolutely exploring these career opportunities.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How many of them are, so they're taking advantage of these opportunities? So the program works like this. So they're part of this program. So upon graduation, they have the potential to obtain their certificate and go to work.
Yes, sir.
So out of those students, last year, I know, last school year, how many of those students from District 1 took advantage of the entire program, received a certificate, and after graduation were able to go into the workforce?
And that's the $1 million question. That's a hard one to answer because when they leave Union County Public Schools, it's really tough to track them.
So you're able to track by certificates?
We can tell, like if you're looking at credentials, we have a record of credentials that were earned while we were, and that's kind of where that number was that came from there. But once they leave and continue on, it does become more difficult. We do a concentrator survey, and I don't have that right in front of me, but I can get that for you. But those give a little bit of insight in that. But that's kind of where they think they're going to be. So sometimes it's tough, and we have to go back and try to track those down. So it is a difficult thing. I wish we could know where every single one of them is. One of the things that I will say, to kind of give you an example, in our electrical trades program, if you take electrical trades 1, 2, and 3, then you actually come in, how it aligns with South Piedmont, you come in 2 years ahead of their continuing education program. So that's where that alignment is. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're really trying to get them into these further education programs or get them directly into that career. So But yes, it is definitely something I feel like has been very beneficial for our students. And I think that is part of the push to having credentials as one of our tools for measuring our technical attainment.
And I know that once they graduate, I'm not, and I may not have asked the question properly. So when they graduate, they go wherever, and I know we don't keep a record of where they're going. So I guess what I was asking, before they graduate, do they have a placement? Do they have a placement of where they're going? For example, when you graduate, I knew where I was going to college, and so that was already taken care of. I knew that when I graduated, I was preparing in the fall to go to Mars College because I was accepted. So before they graduate, is there a place that they have already been connected to, that when they graduate, we can say that they're going to Charlotte Pike to work as a whatever?
So what we do, that's where our career development coordinators really are instrumental. That's what their job is to work with our students and help do career planning. Do all students have a plan? I can't say that every student does, but we work to try to provide as much guidance as we possibly can. There are some students that we definitely know are going into an apprenticeship program or maybe already go to work. In fact, we've done signing days in the past where we've had students that know they're going to work and the companies are there, and we celebrate that. In fact, I was talking with one of my staff members about a virtual way to try to pull that off this year if we have students going to work. So that's something on our radar as well. So it is definitely something that is on our radar, and we definitely try to support students in any way we possibly can to get them prepared.
That has been one of the things that I have enjoyed the most over the past couple of years. Reverend Kirkpatrick, in the past, if one of our football players or one of our athletes has an official signing day to go to Chapel Hill or NC State or Clemson or whatever. So the CTE department started having signing days with their employer. And that has been, I know we had a young man at Piedmont High School that I've known since kindergarten. He had his signing day where he was going to work in HVAC upon graduation last June. And it was just so exciting to see that he knew exactly where he was going to go. And he had this training in one of our high schools, and a local company came in and they had a signing day. And I just hope we see more and more and more of that, because I know our culinary students are, having amazing opportunities at Disney and, at other programs. So I hope we get to see more and more of those signing days.
Okay, sorry. Well, and I would like suggest if you could get him to sign into Major Clarity like you did for me, Mr. Davis, because that's a brand new program. And I think it's awesome because it's not just it's careers, but it's not like it's only trades. It's like, okay, this might be the career that, fits like all the questions you answered. It starts giving you ideas. So in middle school, it could give them ideas like what kind of things do they want to do? And then if they pinpoint something, it'll tell them, okay, then you need to get a college degree. And then you can look and find, like, if you want to go to college in the area, these are the colleges that, have that program. And then you can figure out what the cost would be to go to that college. Like, it really helps you plan and be as prepared as possible for when you graduate. And also it does the same thing for not college. Like, that's not going to be for everybody. So it gives ideas. And so that way, if they know in middle school, I think this is what I want to do, like, that's just the best way to make sure we get them as prepared as possible. And I mean, with CTE, there are so many options. And I think basically, like, if there's interest shown and the courses are being taken, that's why we have the programs at the different schools. And if there's a program that isn't at a certain school that there's an interest for, Mr. Davis, I know you just told me that when we spoke yesterday, then you work to get that program put at that school. Mm-hmm. So it's like a great way. So if the kids are doing Major Clarity and they're like, I really like this, and they're all from Monroe, then he knows we should get this added because there's going to be an interest.
Yeah, we are constantly evaluating the data. We look at things like industry data. We look at student interest. We also look at registration data to make decisions. Other things related to teacher and teacher licensure. There's a lot of variables in there that we look at, but it's something that we are constantly looking at. And that's why we've added so many of these new pathways that we did this year. So absolutely, we're always doing that. And I agree, Major Clarity as a parent, for me, it's a great tool for our students. And I really think that is going to be something that as we build more understanding of it, that they are going to really jump on and take advantage of. It's so simple to use, and it's really good about tracking what the students want to do.
So Major Clarity is something that I'm not familiar with. Neither of my UCPS students heard of, or we never heard of Major Clarity. So my question, as a parent who's never heard this before, is that an icon on every UCPS device on their home screen? So middle school and high school students, is that on the home screen for every middle school and high school student to investigate? And again, on remote learning days, that could be something that we're advocating, you know, for students when they're home, you know, they could be exploring Major Clarity.
Yep. Miss Merrill, you're thinking just like us. So I'm going to bring you into CTE. Okay. So what we've done this year, that's the lesson plans we provided. Those were the lesson plans exactly as a resource for teachers to use on some of these virtual days. And you are 100% correct. It is a single sign-on through Clever. So when students log in on Clever, they access, and it is a 6 through 12 full access tool that they have. And here's the beauty of it. Anything that students put in while they're using it, 6 through 12, when they graduate, if they put their own email address and password in there, they can take that with them forever. So if they have resumes in there, any documents that they put in there, it is all there with them, and it goes with them to help them in their future, whether it be college or career.
Fantastic.
Well, and I think too, unless I'm still learning all this, but I think it's a brand new. I mean, like they didn't have it when my daughter was in school either. So I think it's brand new, and I think if it gives an opportunity to families do it at home with their child, you know, to try to figure it out together, that's even better.
Yeah, which means we need to promote it. Otherwise, parents don't even know that this is something they could be working through with their middle school or high school student that has no clue what they might want to do when they graduate.
Right. And what we've done is we've rolled this out right now primarily in CTE classrooms, and we've used social media. In fact, that's why we had the parent night the other night. And it was really good to see that we had 100 parents participate in that. And it was really good feedback on it. So we're continually building that. I would say it seems like every day I check, there's more and more students in there. So we're pushing 4,000 student activations already. So we really are getting some in there. So I would expect you're going to see more and more. And I know, and you've got a great CDC at Piedmont High School, and I know she's really working to get the word out. So I would expect they'll be hearing some things soon about it.
I wonder if, and this is, I just, the Wayfind program, for instance, they have like that great video clip about the program. Like, I wonder if you all could do something like that. And then, you know, parents could, because they may think Major Clarity, you know, that doesn't necessarily click in their minds. This is going to help me with my child and figuring out what they want to do. But maybe, you know, once students start using it, you could put together, Tahira maybe could even put together some sort of, you know, little advertisement for it.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we could do. And I will say too, the company has been very great to work and customize the program for Union County Public Schools. In fact, one thing that we added was the industry partner profiles from local industry. So now we have the ability to enter local industry information in there. So they can provide a blurb about what they do. They can provide a link to their website. They can also go in there and tell how many people they have working and stuff like that. So now students can go to the work-based learning section and they can go in there and kind of learn more about the local industry. We do have some of that information already on our website. If you go in there and kind of look around, and when we did our virtual high school programs expo, we had a whole section on there with some videos as well. So we definitely have some resources out there for people who are interested in it.
So Brian, I know like Child Nutrition has their own, Twitter handle and site to promote child nutrition. And so just using that as an example, do you have a UCPS CTE where, all the different programs like welding and veterinarian tech, do you have something on Facebook or Twitter where this can be, shared and distributed?
We do. It's at UCPS Career Ready.
Okay, Career Ready. Got it.
Because I'm sure you agree, Melissa, but I mean, I know I never realized when I was just a parent, not really that dialed in, that there was all these opportunities available. So like the more we can get out there so that people realize like it's so many opportunities, and every student needs to know about it.
I knew about it because my oldest son at Porter Ridge took so many Microsoft certifications, computer programming, drafting 1, 2, and 3. He had an amazing opportunity to take all of these at Porter Ridge High School. And then at Piedmont High School, my son was on a military pathway and did not, take advantage of the ones at Piedmont. But and then when we used to have all of our board meetings at the different schools, it was a great opportunity to then when we were at the different schools, they would do presentations. And I'll never forget when we had our board meeting at Parkwood High School. And the welding program came in and showed the virtual welding mask goggles so that they could practice welding and get their hands and their eye-hand coordination steady before they actually started welding actual materials. And so, that was, a great opportunity when we did have meetings at the schools to learn all of this. And I have just always been absolutely blown away by our CTE high school programs.
Well, and if you see these VR goggles with what we're looking at for the future, you need to try it if you get a chance. It is unbelievable. In fact, I had my son, who I've got a captive audience here, he was repairing a paint robot in a manufacturing lab with it. So it is really a neat tool that we're looking at potentially investing in the future. So absolutely, I agree 100%.
If your team would have me, I would welcome the opportunity to come in and try on those goggles, because the Parkwood experience, I'll never forget it. It was amazing.
Absolutely. Anytime, you all are welcome anytime.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, board members? If not, we could move on to the action item for CTE, which is the remote server system. We can move towards that. And again, it is for action. So Brian, I'll just turn it over to you.
Okay, so this kind of goes on with us looking and being forward thinking with planning for career and technical education. So one of the things that COVID-19 has really brought to our attention was the need for all of our students to be able to access some of these high-end programs that they may not have unless they're in one of our labs. So, and the more you think about it, when students go home, they don't have access. So working on projects and things like that are challenging. So one of the things that has become apparent to us is that it is time to think about investing in a server, a high-end server. And I've been working very closely with our technology services department on this. So this is very much a collaboration. But what we were looking at is a server that would allow us to have 100 concurrent users accessing Adobe and AutoCAD programming, because these programs require a more robust machine and they also are very expensive. So we wanted it to be where a student on a UCPS issued Chromebook would be able to remote into a server, access a Windows portal, and be able to have the ability to do work and projects, but whether at home or at school. And if this goes well, it could be something that potentially may replace the need to purchase lab computers. So I'm excited about this. I've been working very closely again with Josh Walker on this, and we think we have a product that should last us at least 10 years is what our goal is. So right now I'm replacing a computer lab about every 4 to 5 years, which becomes expensive. Plus it's a lot of maintenance and work on our technologies department. So this will hopefully, if successful, will streamline that and potentially lead into the future of being able to cut down some of those expenses long term and have a machine that will last much longer for us. So that is what we are looking at. I'm hoping that will be something that will be very beneficial to provide equity across the district.
So it does have a significant price. I know firsthand this is very needed. Will other programs like the virtual welding or that type of software, or is this purchase only going to be towards like the computer programming and AutoCAD?
So that's a good question. So right now we're looking at just putting our Adobe and our AutoCAD programs. And the reason for that is Microsoft Office, we have 365. So you have some similar things there. It is not exactly the same, but it has a good experience. And we purchased some other software to help with that. But those programs with like the AutoCAD and the Adobe, unless you have a really high-end computer, they don't run very well. Right. So what we're doing, that's why we're focusing on that. Now, the thought is going forward, it is a bigger expense at this point, but it's kind of an initial bite the bullet. Let's get it started. And then at this point, you add nodes to the server. That cost is much less. And then we can add capacity as funding allows.
Oh, that's good to know. Where would this funding come from? Is it federal, state, or local?
I'm looking at funding this out of state funding.
State, okay. 100% from state, no federal dollars?
Yes, ma'am. 100% from state. Yes, ma'am.
Did you receive that funding this year, or was it was already in the budget, or? Well,
because, and this year being challenging, we had several positions that went vacant or where we had staff that left. And because of that, I'm able to reallocate that funding and use it for this. And I've worked very closely with Ms. McLam to be able to make sure that we're good to go here. And I feel like this is a very solid investment. I've already spoken with our DPI regional coordinator. They also feel like this is a good use of funding to be able to get this while we have the opportunity. We may not have this opportunity to bite off this much in the future.
Okay. So you have the funds, good to go.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Are there any other questions? If not, I am open to receiving a motion to approve the funds for $331,357.76 out of state funding to recommend to the full board at our April 13th meeting to approve this request.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so we got 4-0. It's approved. So we will take this, Brian, to the April 13th meeting for the board to evaluate and approve for you, okay?
Thank you very much.
And Brian, I just want to thank Union County Public Schools CTE for what they're doing. And I'm just going to share with you that I have a senior at Appalachian State that because of the CTE programs he was able to take at Porter Ridge High School, he went and he was able to take construction, Microsoft, drafting 1, 2, 3, and so many, the 3D modeling at Porter Ridge, just, you know, having an architecture background. and not receiving AutoCAD at UNC Charlotte. Back in the day, we did everything manually with our pencils and parallels, and I had to take that after graduation. But seeing my high school student at Porter Ridge receive that type of education from Union County Public Schools and be able to follow that career path. I believe one of the construction, John, you'll love this, one of the construction teachers over at Monroe actually came to Porter Ridge and taught the construction classes his senior year. And then with all of his drafting and all of the other certifications he received, he was able to go to Appalachian State into their building sciences program. And he's a senior, and he was able to do his internship with a construction company this year. During COVID, he got his internship and will be able to graduate with all of this training under his belt from Union County Public Schools and now Appalachian State. He is scheduled to graduate this summer. So I can't say enough for Union County Public Schools and what we're doing through CTE. So I just want to thank you and your entire team, and always thinking outside of the box, you know, what's best for our students, college and career readiness.
Definitely.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the support of the board and Dr. Houlihan and Dr. Breedlove. We couldn't do what we do without all the support that we get, and I look forward to continuing to work for CTE and make sure that we provide as many opportunities as possible for our students.
I was excited to see this server request because I remember 4 or 5 years ago, he was having an awfully hard time doing his homework at home on his Chromebook.
We are going to fix that one.
Too late for him, but I'm excited for our current students to be able to do this. Very, very good request.
Thank
Are
you.
there any other questions or comments from board members?
Just thank you so much. Appreciate all the info.
You're very welcome.
With that being said, our closing items, we will be taking the CTE remote server request to the full board at our April 13th meeting. Our next committee meeting, board members, will be April 15th at 11 a.m., hopefully in person at the PDC. And if there are no other comments or questions, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we have a second from Reverend Kirkpatrick. All those in favor say aye. Aye.